What is going on, guys? So just before we start off, I just want to thank everybody who gave me, such kind words on the last video that I put together on, the maps in Hell Let Loose and kind of how they function and whatnot. It seems to help a lot of new players, and a lot of the older players definitely appreciated, this kind of content for to kind of help those new players get to know exactly how the games plays, because there is a lot to learn when you kind of jump into this game for the first time. So yeah, big thank you to everyone who kind of for all the kind words and all the likes and whatnot. So now you know how the map works. The question is, how do we start a game? So the first thing you want to do, and this is amazing that they've added this prep timer in, is that it gives you that time, that 2 minutes at the start to kind of organize your team together and get exactly, who's going to do what, who's attacking, who's defending, is anybody on artillery, is anybody just going to run logistics, figuring out exactly who's doing what. And you're always going to need a minimum of 2 defending squads. So to be honest, if you're still starting off, I would recommend kind of mostly going with defense. It gives you, it helps you really learn kind of, the defense points you're meant to be defending and all the strong points of them, before you kind of move off to attacking, because attacking is generally, people would say attack is where more of the action is, but honestly, if you're playing against a good team, defense can be just as action-packed. And it can also be really fun even if there is no action. You can have your own little laughs. So yeah, at least minimum 2 defense squads, full squads now, not just like half squads. And if commander asks you, if you're set up as an attacking squad, and he asks you to go on defense, please do so. And the easiest way you can identify as well for any kind of one looking to join your squad is when you create your squad, if you set the icons, so if you see the little arrow above when you create your squad, they will have a offense, a defense, a logistics, and an artillery squad icon, so you can people can easily see once they join into the game which squad you are. So now, what I'm showing you here isn't exactly set in stone, but it's a great jumping off point for how, to set your initial garrisons. So obviously the supply truck is going to spawn at your mid HQ. So either your commander, if you don't have a commander, then 2 squad leads even, can take the truck, drive up the road. This works on every point, always go to the middle. You can drop your first set of supplies off, and the first squad leader, he can build a garrison here, and he can generally, this is going to be like probably one of your assault guys, so they can drop off straight away and get initially making that push. Then take a left and come up, and depending on, because the middle points are always the most crucial. So say for instance, if we're attacking hospice, you might even want to get this garrison further up north. If it's checkpoint, you might want to only reach the 200-meter distance and set it. So it's really going to depend on what point you're attacking next and what point you're defending as well, where exactly you position it. You don't always want to put it in the same position, but the general idea is that you can get 2 garrisons up set pretty quickly with the supply truck. And then in the south, you're going to have squad leader and support guys, and maybe even you might take the recon guys with you if there's no one running the recon vehicle, to kind of help them transport behind enemy lines. So you might take them with you, you're going to go to the south. And again, depending on, maybe if we're attacking hospice or St. Mary Glaze, you might even get it a little bit more north. Or if for instance, a checkpoint, you might get it more south, and it really comes down to, again, those variables. That's what it's just a general guide, it's not set in stone, but that's just the initial kind of general thing, the way you'll get 3 garrisons up on the line. And from there, the majority of your assault squads are going to spawn on this first initial garrison. So I did do some testing, and I'm going to have the footage up on the screen here now of how long it takes. So it takes roughly just under, at least for this instance, I ran from the mid HQ to Valaville, and that took, to the edge, took just under a minute and 30 seconds. Then from the border on the road to the edge, pretty much where I set up the garrison in the truck clip, took roughly 100 seconds, which is a minute and 40 seconds. Compared to if you were to just wait on the garrison to be placed. And obviously the garrison placement might vary depending on, if there's artillery, if, the driver maybe, depending on certain maps, might get stuck. So that took 95 seconds. So it's roughly the same whether you've, initially got to the edge or whether you're going to wait for the garrison. So it's really going to come down to, your judgment call. If you're in before a minute and 30 seconds on the countdown, you might even just be best off running there, especially, on more kind of complex terrain maps. For instance, you're going to take Hurricane or Hill 400, you're definitely going to be better off just running there, because trying to get trucks around those kind of maps can be a bit of a pain in the ass. As for your defenses, you're pretty much always going to want your defense squads to spawn on the HQs. So, you know, if you're there, because they're going to be initially pushing towards Rue de Harass, if you're going to, you know, be defending that, you know, so you'll have them spawn in the north. And also what might be a new kind of way to start off is if you get your defense squads to take a support guy with them. So then once the timer ticks down, you'll immediately be able to get defensive garrisons set up. So even if you have only 2 squads, you know, you can get those initial defense garrisons set up straight away. And yeah, so that's really going to help with the initial thing. It's going to stop steamrolling as much as long as people actually do this, because if nobody's setting up defensive garrisons and nobody's setting up their assault garrisons in the first place, it's just going to fall apart and you're just going to lose games. So, you know, if you can get those initial garrisons set up, you're on point. Next, something as well is a nice little thing you can do once you have, you know, that first initial garrison. So if you're an engineer and you spawn straight in on that midpoint, you'll have your 100 extra supplies with you. And if every squad takes a support as well, you know, you'll have a little bit more. You'll be able to get initial nodes down straight away and you get them built. And then you also have the extra supplies up north as well. You can just kind of run over and get them. And that's just a nice quick way to get, you know, your nodes down and get those resources in. Because with the recent change to the game, if you lose, you know, the sector, you will lose all nodes in that sector. So these initial nodes in the 5 zone that we kind of discussed in the last video are going to become a lot more crucial, because most cases you might actually wait until you cap and then start trying to build nodes. That's going to be a lot riskier. And I feel like, you know, node building is going to be kind of more done in the more safe zones. So for instance, if if you have the midpoint, you know, you're not really going to want to get many nodes kind of set up there. You want to, you know, maybe have 1 or 2 sets just so that you're getting that, you know, extra to kind of help you carry on. But you might want to wait until you actually get like the next zone before you start building, so you have that, you know, one safety layer. Because at the end of the day, the last thing you want to be doing is losing your nodes and then nobody's actually going to go build them up. So yeah, just on that initial start, to be easily able to get, you know, a few nodes set up and get some resources flowing. And that really comes down to squad leads making sure that their squads all have engineers and supports at the initial start. I mean, once you've kind of started and supports have dropped their initial supplies, you can jump off, because at the end of the day, don't really want anybody actually playing support, because you want to have that free for when you need some to switch to drop supplies, you know. Because if you're not, then you got like a guy who's like on the cooldown and stuff. So unless you know you're doing a lot of anti-tanking, and then maybe you need him with the refuel for maybe even nades as well for smokes, you know, in that case. But mostly you want to leave support free so you can get a guy to switch off and drop supplies if you need a new garrison up. Now, saying that, this was the original kind of, you know, setup that I was planning to do, and I was waiting for this update because of this. So with the addition of red garrisons, maybe if it's a case of, you know, it's a map that favors the opposing team. For instance, I like to think that St. Mergles kind of does in a way, because the transport truck can just come straight down the main road and it's the fastest way to get people to the point. I think a better one would be, you know, WM4 in Utah and the likes. You might actually be better off, you know, maybe even holding off on, you know, maybe even one of these garrisons. And what you'll do instead, for instance, if for St. Mergles, you might say what you might do, for instance, with St. Mergles, you might actually, rather than coming up here and setting a garrison here, you might swing into the enemy territory and use the 150 supplies to get fairly far away, so obviously it's not going to get triggered point, and then in that case you'll have, you know, an even better position to make your attack in from. So it's really going to depend. As I said, it's not set in stone, it's just kind of general ideas, kind of get you kind of, or to get some sort of unified idea for all kind of new players of how, you know, games should start, and, you know, what are the main things you need to be doing at the very start. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you spend 5-10 minutes at the start getting things set up properly, you're going to have a much funner game, and, you know, it's going to be better, rather than you don't get shit set up and, you know, you're just going to be struggling the entire game and always on the back foot. Again, as well, depending on how the cap is going, if it is a case that the enemy are doing pretty well to cap it, you know, you want to have your defensive squads building their nodes for definite in the zone that you're in. If it is a case that you're looking like you're going to cap it, then it might be a case of, you know, you hold off and you don't really kind of set them up, and it turns out the defense actually makes a bit more of a push into the next zone with you. So it's all going to come down to variables, and, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to be the commanders that are generally making these kind of shot callings. Should really be, if it is a case of squad leaders are communicating exactly what's going on effectively. Speaking of communication, at the end of the day, guys, that is the most important thing. If, you know, everybody's communicating well, that's the best games, when you've got everybody given the information they need, and, you know, you got, you know, defense squads, if they're on pressure and they need someone to fall back, and, you know, you're able to help. That's the beauty in this game. So yeah, guys, it's pretty short one today, at least At least it seems pretty short in the recording. But yeah, guys, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Share it with any new players that you might know who might need to, you know, learn how to start their games. You know, maybe even just with veteran players who, you know, might give me some criticisms. You know, if anything that I missed, drop it down in the comments below. And guys, I will see you in the next one.